Welcome to the Two Tall Jews Show, presented by the On This Day in Jewish History Instagram account and sponsored by Best Shop Productions.
We are the Two Tall Jews, and we are ready to go.
On today's show, we are very excited to be with Magali Bursztyn. I hope I said that right.
Yeah, perfectly.
Magali is the co-host of the Hummus and Tech Podcast, or if you're in Israel, the Hummus and Tech Podcast. This is the first podcast for olim by olim interested in the Israeli high-tech industry. Hummus and Tech is hosted by Magali and Kevin Hanna right out of the Google for Startup studio in Tel Aviv. You can find them on Spotify and Instagram at Hummus and Tech. Magali, welcome to the show. We're happy to have you on.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Just to clarify, are you hummus or tech?
Oh, that's a tough one. Can it be a bit of both? I mean, I like tech a bit more than I like hummus, though. So I really like tech. So if I had to pick sides, then I would definitely go for, the tech one. But I love hummus, trust me.
You represent hummus and Kevin represents tech, or vice versa. So
I think it's a bit of both. We both love hummus and we both love tech, but I like tech more than I like hummus. So I will leave Kevin to handle the hummus.
Got it. Well,
okay.
We can have him on the next time that we talk to you.
Yeah.
And so let's start off by getting to know each other a little bit. We've only communicated through email and direct message. So just so our listeners know, tell us a little bit about Hummus and Tech, and like your background. How did you get to Hummus and Tech? And
For sure. So, well, my name is Magali. I am originally from Buenos Aires, from Argentina, and I moved to Israel in 2011 with a Masa program, and things happened and I got very exciting positions in the high-tech industry. So I, ended up staying in Israel, which is something that I'm very proud of. And I'll tell you a bit about Kevin. Kevin is also from Buenos Aires and from Argentina. And he also came to Israel with a Masa program in Tel Aviv, which was actually a very similar program to what I did, only a few years after that. And Kevin and I met on an airplane, which is a very funny story. We were both going back for the holidays to go visit our parents in Argentina. And we knew we had a lot of friends in common, and we happened to take the same flight back home. Now, I don't know if you know, but taking a flight from Tel Aviv to Buenos Aires is a very long flight. So we clearly had a lot of time to speak about many different subjects. And since we were both already working in tech and we had a lot of friends that were asking us all the time, how did you get that job? Or how is it to work in this industry? Or, how do you pass from being like a simple OLED to like being someone in the high-tech world? Then we understood that we had so many tools that we could share with our friends. And we started talking, we're like, maybe we could turn this into a podcast. And this was about December 2017. And by February 2018, I got an email internally. I was working for Google at the time, that they were planning to open a podcasting studio within the office. And because I'm good friends with the people that work there, I was one of the first ones they contacted, and they kind of like offered me if I was planning to have any podcast. And I was like, wow, this is actually, a very nice sign from heaven, because we were actually talking about it for a while. So Kevin and I were one of the first ones to actually record a podcast at the Google for Startup campus. And we've been recording ever since. Just unfortunately, we couldn't do it anymore due to the coronavirus, but we still record a few episodes via Zoom. We have 18 episodes live. 2 of them were recorded via Zoom. The rest of them were recording in the studio. And we basically, the format of our podcast is that we bring different olim from different, I don't know if I should make that clarification, but olim are new immigrants that come to Israel from different parts of the world. So we bring people from different corners of the planet that decided to move to Israel and somehow landed a great job in the high-tech industry that come from very different and various backgrounds. So it's nice that we are able to showcase that anyone can actually land a job in the high-tech industry, because some people have the misconception that only developers get to do that. And I'm a vivid example. I mean, I'm clearly not a developer. I studied marketing, and I work for great companies such as for Wix and Google. So we basically want to showcase that by doing the right things and getting to know the right people and having a CV that really showcase your expertise, you can also get a job in the high-tech industry, especially in Israel or in Tel Aviv, where the options are so big, right? Because you have so many different companies that focus on that industry.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm not in high tech, but I definitely hear that that's the best job in Israel. And I feel like, to me, it's when I make Aliyah, and if I'm not working as a coder, I hope to be involved in some way, like you said, like marketing or just in some aspect, because it is the most profitable, and that makes sense.
Of course, and also the people that get to work there, due to the kind of various background they're looking for, they tend to be people from all over the world, which is also very interesting when it comes to getting to know people. And there are some companies that enable you to find long life friends, that you just meet people that just stay your friends forever, because there are people that are just like you, in Israel, maybe without a family, or just on a very similar stage in their lives. So it's great to work in high tech in Israel. I mean, I highly recommend it, but that's basically what we want to showcase on the podcast, is that everyone can do it, and just basically tell those amazing life stories from all our guests that are so various. Just tell them, yeah, you can do it as well. I mean, if you had a marketing degree or an HR degree, or even if you studied social studies or environmental studies, there's a place for you in the high-tech industry as well. You don't have to be just a coder.
Right. So how long were you at Google, out of curiosity?
I'm sorry?
How long were you at Google?
I was there for almost 3 years.
Okay. And what year did you make Aliyah?
I made Aliyah in 2011, and I joined Google in 2017.
Got it. Okay, so you make Aliyah, and what did you do then? What came next?
So I made Aliyah, and actually I had a job that was not related to high tech. That was my first job in Israel. I was working for a music production company and a DJ management company, which is really big in Israel, and allowed me to travel around Europe and manage music festivals, which was absolutely great. And from there, I got one of the most amazing learning experience when it comes to the job market, which is how to work under pressure, which is something that is highly valued nowadays, but it was not related to high tech whatsoever. And then my first job in the high tech industry was in 2015 or 14, I cannot really remember, but it was one of the two, when I joined Wix as a social media manager. And there I could actually showcase my expertise in the marketing scene on a more techie related way. So that was my first job. I started at Wix and I stayed there in 2017. That's when I joined Google. And now I'm working for a company that's called Magali Bursztyn. I joined about 2 months ago, which is a podcasting company. So it made a lot of sense that I would, join their marketing team.
Cool.
Got it. So I want to dive in to the title. So Hummus and Tech.
Yeah.
So what's the deal with hummus? Is it a food that represents more than just its taste? How did the title come about?
So the title came out to something that we wanted an element of Israel that we could all relate to, right? Because I think that not all the olim, not all the immigrants moved to Tel Aviv, and not all the immigrants, like to party in Tel Aviv, or, so we wanted something that was more holistic, something that everyone could relate very easily to Israel. And it was very easy. It was just, it's gotta be hummus, right? Everyone, you're coming, either it's for holiday, you're coming for birthright, you're coming for a Masa program, or you're making Aliyah, it doesn't matter. You will always eat hummus when you're in Israel. It's just something that you must do. And we said, okay, we wanna showcase the Israeli high-tech scene in something that really resonates to the people that are not from Israel. And what do they do when they come to Israel, right? You eat hummus. But there's also the techie side to it. So that's why we thought of the idea of Hummus and Tech, and people really liked it and we loved it, and we love both sides of the title. So it just kind of like worked like magic.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, yeah, the paradox is definitely appealing. At least for me, when I ran across it on Instagram, I was like, oh, what's going on here? So who's the target audience in terms of like, do you mostly speak to people that are involved in tech, or do you want to reach out to people that are maybe, not so involved and but are interested? And then, so that's, sorry, first half of the question.
Mm-hmm.
The second half of the question is, what's the perfect happy ending for Hummus and Tech? Not necessarily an ending, but like, where do you see the show going in the next 5 years?
Okay, so I'll start with the first one. Our target audience, even though it's pretty defined because we're mostly talking to people who are either planning to move to Israel or already moved to Israel, that just want to understand more about the job market in general. Because, let's be honest, whenever you're an olim, you probably have a very interesting plus in your CV, and that's languages, right? If you're coming from the US, you probably have English speaking, Latin, you know what I mean. And that kind of skill is highly appreciated in the high-tech world. So it's a very natural path for a olim to want to enter the high-tech industry. So that's a very clear target audience for us, like people who are either thinking about moving to Israel or just moved to Israel or live in Israel and want to change path into the high-tech industry. But actually, and surprisingly, or maybe not so surprisingly enough, we have people that listen to us that just want to listen to life experiences. But at the end of the day, like, even though we're just talking about the Israeli job market, we tell stories of people that, for example, studied social studies and then they moved to high tech. And that doesn't necessarily only happen in Israel, right? Like, you can go through that change of careers anywhere in the world. And there's so many people that specifically now with this like unprecedented times that we're living, people want to really like review their path and review what they're doing and understand if what they're doing makes them happy. And we tell so many transformational stories of people that landed in Israel with one degree and ended up doing something completely different to what they expected to do, from lawyers, even doctors, that ended up in the high-tech industry. So there's a lot of people that listen to us that just want to connect with those kind of like empowerment of like, what you studied is not what defines you. You can definitely find a job in a completely different industry. So I would say that's our target audience. Most of our audience, I would say it's in Latin America, in the States, and in Israel, of course. Mm-hmm. So like that's where they are. We have a few people in Europe and a few people in South Africa. Mostly we're on Australia as well. So it's mostly like where people, like Jewish young people are, or the biggest Jewish communities. And that's a very nice question. I don't know where I would see Hummus and Tech in 5 years. I think that me and Kevin, we get along very well. We're great friends. We're just not co-hosts. We adore each other, and we're just very good friends, and we had so much fun doing this. Like, it was such a pleasure, and it was so organic, mm-hmm. how everything turned out. Yeah. So I would definitely love to continue doing it. I don't know if we could step it up a notch a bit and make something even greater than this. But I think the main point or whatever like really fulfills our souls is whenever, we're, I don't know, at dinner with friends and someone's like, oh, you're from Hummus and Tech. Like, I listened to your episode and thanks to you, I decided I wanted to change my career, or thanks to you, I changed my CV and I actually got accepted at this job position. And I think that's the thing that really just, if we can achieve that, then we're the happiest.
No, it's interesting. Like, what if it becomes sort of something like a think tank of sorts, or like a place where like people can, because we've spoken a lot about like career pivots.
Right.
So maybe in a way, the show can become something like that, where you're like a home for olim who are ready to make a pivot, whether it's tech or whatever it is. But like you said, you show up with a degree or you show up with a plan, and then like, it's like the country's like, no, like you're not gonna do that.
Right? Yeah. We all get those surprises. And like, But I think that at some point we kind of are like, maybe we do not showcase on a specific platform besides the fact that, that we tell stories and stuff, but we do get beautiful messages on social media of people telling us, their stories or how much they connected with this particular guest that had a very similar story to what they were going through at the moment. So we kind of are a place where people can come to us. And I think me and Kevin were like very social people. We know a lot of people in Tel Aviv. And that's also why this podcast kind of like worked, because we just knew so many people that we could invite to the show, and that it was just a pleasure to interview. So we kind of like made a community out of it. Yeah, 100%.
Cool. What has podcast life been like amidst the pandemic?
So it's been very weird, especially because we love recording at Google for Startups. It just feels like home. It was also my office for many years. But everything closed, the office closed, I quit the job, and the recording studio closed. So it was clearly a huge change for us in all different kind of aspects, this pandemic. And it was a bit more challenging than usual, especially because when we used to like go and record in the studio, we were meeting friends. Like that was the core point of it. It's like, come, tell us your story. Let us know how it felt to, do such pivots in your career. But it was just a friendly conversation that we all enjoyed having. And all of a sudden, to have like the technicalities of like open the Zoom, open the camera, etc., it can be a bit more frustrating. But the first recorded episode that we actually did, we did it in partners with Secret Tel Aviv, which is a very special group in Tel Aviv that has hundreds and thousands of members. And we were invited to be a part of their content calendar. So we did a live record with them. So we actually like did a live show, and then we recorded it and brought up to be a podcast. And that was also very, very fun. And we were exposed to different audiences that normally maybe we wouldn't be, because there's so many Israelis there as well. So it had its pros and cons, 100%. I mean, if you ask me, I would always be more than happy to go back to the studio and have all that beautiful equipment that they have, and those beautiful chairs, and just feel, like we're basically playing to have a radio, but this is also okay. I mean, now we are able to talk to people that are on the other side of the world, that when we had to invite them to the studio, it didn't even cross our minds that this could be possible. And it has its benefits as well. Like now we're more open to have guests from different corners of the planet, that before it wasn't even a possibility. And now we are kind of getting used to this new normality. So it's okay.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Isaac and I have yet to record in person, so we're kind of on the other side of that coin.
Right. It's true.
Wait, because I'm in Miami,
yeah,
in New York, and we're actually going to meet up in a week, hopefully. So.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. No, for us, it's been the best pandemic ever. So yeah.
Yeah, because we wanted to do this for years, and then this finally, we were like, oh, like everyone's doing it online. Like we can literally just do it online. Let's go. So.
Absolutely. You see, so there's always pros and cons, and there's always a bright side to every, kind of like harsh story. It really serves. I mean, we were able to do a live broadcast on Israel's most engaging Facebook group ever.
Right.
And it wouldn't have happened if there wasn't a pandemic, right? So you win and you lose, but it's okay.
So we want to talk about being an ole. So
yes.
you defined it. Ole literally means to go up. And in this case, we're talking about moving up to Israel because, right, it comes from going up to Zion or Jerusalem. So it's obviously a major topic on the show. Like you said, you're speaking to olim when you're like as part of your target audience. So what are some clear benefits of moving to Israel that you wouldn't have in Argentina or anywhere else where Spain? And what are some like detractions? So because you always hear people that are like, they go with the highest of hopes and then they show up and they end up leaving because it's hard, it's expensive, and so.
Very much so. So I think that in order to answer that question, I think it's very important that everyone understands where they're coming from, because, if I come from Argentina, clearly the benefits that I will find in Israel will most likely be very different to the ones that someone that is coming from Canada. So I think that understanding where you're coming from will lead a much more clear path towards realistic expectations about Israel. That's like first. I think that there's many benefits that we can all relate to on the general level. I think that Israel, I mean, once again, if you're making Aliyah, you're most likely Jewish, so I'm going to talk from that sense. It's home. There's no other country in the world where they will just gonna open the doors for you and be like, hey, you know what? Here's your passport. Here's your ID. Enjoy. It's such a privilege if you think about it. We are born with two nationalities at some point. Why not taking advantage of something like that? It's amazing. Israel is a great country in so many ways. One of the main reasons why we wanted to focus on tech was because we believe, especially because we both work in tech, that it's one of the major highlights that Israel has right now. There's so many amazing startups. There's so many creative people walking around, and finding a great job right now, it's kind of like, I wouldn't say easy, but you have so many possibilities in Israel if you know the right people and if you're ready. And of course, you need to have experience and you need to be like a good professional, etc., etc. But if you already have all of those in Israel, you're most likely to find a job, and they're very welcoming to olim. It's true. I mean, they're a country that is used to welcoming people from abroad. From the day, the country was born, no one was like, I mean, there's so many like waves of immigration towards Israel. Mm-hmm. So they know how to adapt to new cultures. They know how to explain their own culture to you. And it just feels like home. It's a very, very like hard to explain feeling, because it's something that goes like a bit kind of like within. Mm-hmm. But I cannot really think of another country besides my home country where I can just land and feel home straight away, where I'm being welcomed the way I'm being welcomed in Israel.
Don't forget Saudi Arabia.
Can't even get off the plane if you're doing a landing.
I mean, I think it's a wonderful country, and the people there are very nice. I mean, of course you have assholes, but you have assholes everywhere. I mean, it's just reality, right? And you will have great bosses and you will have horrible bosses, but you will have horrible bosses in your home country as well. Yeah. I mean, I think it's very important to, besides the fact that it's a great country, not to set Israel in a place where everything is magical and things just work because you're entitled to. You're not entitled to anything.
You had a great time on your birthright trip.
Exactly. Yeah. Just because of the fact that you fell in love with the soldier on your birthright trip doesn't mean you're gonna get married in the first 3 months. Okay, doesn't happen like that. But there's something very pure about the essence of the Israeli person, where they're very honest and they're very straightforward, and clearly that may resonate differently according to where you're coming from. I'm Latin, so I don't see that as something so far away, but maybe someone from Canada will see it like that. So it's also understanding, as I said before, understanding what is your concept according to your home country. Mm-hmm. But it's a great place to live. I think that it just brings a lot of possibilities if you're wise enough to take them and understand how to play the game, because it's Israel and you need to, and here are the downsides about living in Israel. You need to be financially smart because it's a very expensive country. People can be a bit pushy or can come out as rude due to their personalities. And it's hard. I mean, it's easy, but at the same time, it's hard. It's easy because you will find friends that will become family very easily because there's so many people on the same boat as you are, like literally hundreds and thousands of them. There's people from all over the world, so you will find multiple cultures that you will feel comfortable with. You will probably find people from your own hometown that if you ever want to go back to that kind of like home feeling and speak your own language, you will definitely do it. Needless to say, Kevin is Argentinian, I'm Argentinian, and we're friends, so that makes a lot of sense as well. Israel can be tough in the ways that the country is small. So on one hand, you have a lot of possibilities, but it's not like, okay, I will move from California to New York to Miami. I mean, there's not so much room for things to happen. You know, if you want to go to the hijack scene, you will probably most likely just find it in Tel Aviv or Haifa. And I'm saying 90%, 10%, right? Yeah. So everything is a bit smaller and it's a bit more concentrated. But I think in general terms, understanding how the world looks right now, I think it's a great place. I think it's very challenging. And I also myself had multiple crises where I was like, I'm leaving the country. I don't know if I want to live here anymore. Right now you're catching me and I'm in Barcelona, like taking a small break from Israel. But I think that if I see it in a abstracted perspective, it's a really good country. It's very safe. It is. I mean, it's you feel safe when you go out on the street. People are rude and are straightforward. Yes, but there's no bullshit.
This sort of occurred to me before the other question I want to ask. Would you say there's a direct relationship between the high cost of living in Tel Aviv and it also being the hub of the tech industry?
Absolutely, 100%. 100%. I mean, because there are such high salaries on certain parts of the industry, they're like, okay, they can pay it. They can pay $5 for an apple.
So is it a bubble in that regard?
Yeah, I think for most people it is. I think especially like when you're just entering the high tech, industry, yes, you're in high tech, but you're making the lowest salary in high tech, which will probably lead you to like need to live with roommates or, living in a shared apartment and stuff. And Israel is just a very expensive country. It's very expensive. If you're thinking about buying a property there, it's absolutely insane. So you need to be prepared to not have as many facilities when it comes to money as probably in the States. Once again, I'm coming from Latin America, so my benchmark is a bit different.
I'm curious, is it at all like looking at it as a bubble, comparing it to the Hollywood entertainment industry? Is it all in the way where you have to start off in a bad job, and if you hustle and if you make the right connections,
absolutely,
you will make it?
I think so.
But then at the same time, there's a good chance you don't make it.
True. I think that with perseverance and hard work, and of course you need to be talented at what you are, I think that it's also something that we mention a lot about in the podcast. It's about being honest with yourself. You don't have to be good at 100 things. Just by being very good at just one, it's more than enough. But you don't have to be good at a million things. Just focus on one and be the best you can. And by doing that, if you meet the right people, which once again, Tel Aviv is a very tiny city, you're most likely to meet them. Right? Like you will probably have friends that work on other startups, or you have, people that work on the same building what that startup is. So reaching out to those people is clearly easier than, let's say, if I want to be an actress in Hollywood, just because the industry is so much bigger. But there's definitely a connection point to what you said, where you need to start low. I mean, no one started, and that I think this is, we talk about it with Kevin quite a lot, but there's some people that whenever they come to Israel, just because the whole like fantasy that in Israel everything's so easy and you're welcome, etc., people are like, okay, great. So here I don't know, a PA at someone's office, and when I go to Israel, I'll be the CEO. No, doesn't work like that, guaranteed. If you worked as a PA, most likely you will keep on working as a PA in Israel. Now, the ladder to climb up to be closer to a CEO is going to be easier. But the moment you land in Israel, you are most likely to have a good job, but not the perfect job. And I think this is once again it's a huge misconception within Olim that they're like, okay, I studied this, I want to start working straight away about what I love. I don't know anyone, and I can tell you guaranteed no one, absolutely no one that moved to Israel and started working. Their first job was something that blew their mind. It's really rare. We all started with jobs that were not that convincing. We all started in positions that maybe were not that convincing, and then you just climb up.
Right.
The opportunity is there. You just need to be smart.
Got it. So you've interviewed a lot of people in the Israeli tech industry.
Yes.
Fresh entrepreneurs and veterans, etc. Which company or individual stood out to you the most?
So I would like to mention two in particular, if I can.
Yeah.
One of them, I'm mentioning him not just because he's one of my best friends in the world, but actually his story is something that people keep on mentioning, like this was the most inspiring episode. His name is Alex. If I'm not mistaken, he's in episode number 4 or 5. Pretty sure it's 5. Where he basically starts with a very similar story to what we were discussing previously, which is he was a software engineer and he had to apply for many different jobs, and until he got that position that he liked and that got accepted, he sent like 350 CVs, something like that, and he made this Excel file where he had everything, every step of the way. If he talked to HR, if he sent the CV, if he got a reply, and he had everything calculated. And on the meantime, he was a bartender on the beach. And he's a software engineer. So I'm saying, like, you always need to be humble and start from the beginning. Now he's working in in this wonderful company called Outbrain, and he's very, very happy, and etc. But his story is very inspirational, and it really shows on a very rough way what I think the actual journey of the Olim is when they move to Israel. It's like, yes, you have the degree, great, good for you. But at the same time, you're starting your life from scratch in a place where you do not know anyone. You'll make it, but you need to be patient. So I think that his case and his participation in our show was something that was really touching for us. And I think that it resonated with so many people because, this was from last season and one of the first episodes, and there's still people that are texting us like, oh my God, I just listened to this episode and it's still relevant for me, or I'm going through that right now. And it's very comforting to know I'm not the only one that needs to send 300 CVs until I get the perfect position.
Yep.
And the second one that I like to mention, it's Liora. And Liora is one of the co-founders of a project in Israel, of course, that is called Fuck Up Nights, which is people that talk about their failures, which is something that most people do not like to talk about because, we're all very egocentric and we all like to talk about how good we did. But she basically focused on stories that did not go right. And it's a 2-part episode where we talk about, first of all, embracing failure, which is something that it's so hard sometimes because we're so hard on ourselves because it's such a competitive environment as well. So we do something wrong and we just want to cry and sit in bed all day. And it's all about learning from failure and what to do with it. And I think her participation on the show, it was very emotional. I remember when we stopped recording, Kevin and I looked at each other and we couldn't even speak because it was just so motivational. At the same time, it was so true. Everything she said about the path of accepting failure. So those are my 2 favorite, people that came to the show. And I think that their episodes and the learnings that we got from them are so special that, I don't know, to me, they stay very close to my heart. And I think also for the audience, they really resonated with them.
Yeah, definitely have to check out those episodes.
Yeah.
So we are on with Magali Bursztyn from Hummus and Tech. What has been the most rewarding aspect of being a podcast host? how do you feel you've grown as a result? And what advice would you give to somebody that's just getting started?
So I think it's been great. I had so many learnings, and from project management to being able to speak to a lot of people, which is something, that sometimes we're so scared to do. And it's been an amazing ride, and I loved every single part of it. And sometimes I was scared, and sometimes I thought it was not going to go the right way. And what if the audience doesn't like it? What if the guest doesn't like it? What if I have a problem with my co-host? And I was very lucky that none of that really happened. It did, but in very tiny terms. Overall, it's a wonderful experience. And I think that nowadays with technology, we don't need to be endorsed by something huge in order to create something, which before, if you wanted to be on a radio show, you had to have, basically a radio network supporting you.
Right.
Now with technology, and this is why we love tech so much, or why I'm such a huge fan, we are enabled to do whatever we want because we have the platforms, we have the knowledge, we have the equipment and the technology to just do it. And my biggest advice for everyone is if you're scared, do it while you're scared, but just do it while you're scared. Don't let fear stop you, because you can just do it. Like right now, it's crazy how easy it is. You don't need any sort of endorsement. You are enough. So if you think there's a failure point to it, forget about it. Still do it, even if you're scared, because the one that doesn't complete the journey never gets to the end. So you just need to keep on running, and you need to keep on running, and you'll make it. And I think that's very important for every podcast host, or for every person that is trying to do a personal project. And nowadays, when they look, and this is more on the professional side, I think when people look at our CVs, right now with our generation, we're lucky that we could all go and have university degrees or have great education and stuff like that. So you want to highlight. And the thing that right now will make you, differentiate yourself from the rest is your personal projects. So whatever you're thinking about writing a blog, or starting your own podcast, or starting your own YouTube channel, becoming an influencer on Instagram, whatever it is, do it. Right now, there's no one stopping you. You don't need any sort of endorsement. Your knowledge and your passion, it's enough. So just do it. If you're scared, do it while you're scared. That's my biggest advice to everyone that's thinking about doing it for the first time. We were all scared.
Yeah.
Even if you're scared, do it scared.
Because you're scared.
Because you're scared. And while you're scared, it's okay. Just go ahead and do it. And, whoever, doesn't turn the engine never reaches the end of the tunnel. So if you don't turn the engine of that car, you really will never move. So it's all about trying and making failures.
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Absolutely that. Exactly. So.
Okay, now we're going to wrap it up with something we're calling rapid fire. It's not very original. I've seen other podcasts do this. But first thing that comes to mind, and mostly for people that are visiting Israel or Tel Aviv, what is the best hummus in Tel Aviv? Just one.
Okay, Abu Hassan in Yafo.
Okay. Best shakshuka.
Best shakshuka. Dr. Shakshuka in Yafo.
Yes. So it's Yafo. Yafo's winning this one. Best shawarma?
No, but shawarma, it's under my place. Frischman. Shawarma Frischman. Those are my people. I'm a Düsseldorf person. So yeah, shawarma and Frischman, 100% guaranteed with Yossi.
Okay, on nightlife, best bar.
Jenyan, Kikar Düsseldorf.
Best club.
Kulialma.
Best unknown hole in the wall spot.
Ooh, I like that one. Jasper Bar, the one behind the wall on Düsseldorf.
And then in terms of the country, what is your favorite destination outside of Tel Aviv?
Ben Gurion.
Ben Gurion
The
Steboker?
airport.
Oh, the airport. Like his grave?
That's the only place I go outside Tel Aviv.
Yeah, most people
I'm
don't know
kidding.
it's not in
There's
Tel Aviv.
many beautiful places within Israel. I wear my Tel Aviv flag very proudly, and I think I rarely need to leave the city. I think that I rarely need to leave Tel Aviv Markaz, actually, just the center of Tel Aviv. No, it's a beautiful country. I'm a huge fan of the Negev. I'm a huge fan of the desert whenever I have the chance. I think there's beautiful views, and you know, people are super nice, and you can find amazing restaurants as well. Going to Jerusalem every once in a while to just, you know, enjoy for a walk or something can be very magical. Haifa, it's also a cool city. Akko, it's a city I also enjoy. But I stay in Tel Aviv. That's my favorite. I think, your card isn't off. You don't need anything beyond that, 100%.
What's your least favorite destination in Israel?
Oh, Eilat.
Eilat, yeah, I hear that.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that kind of area.
Right.
But it's, I mean, I know that people love it. I just, not a huge fan.
Unless you're going to Petra, what's the point?
I know. I mean, I just go to Eilat whenever I want to cross Petra, right?
Yeah. And then, so what's one, let's say somebody's visiting Israel for the first time, they're not on a program, they might be going alone. What's the pro tip for something that they should keep in mind?
Okay. They will always give you free chasers in bars. You just need to ask for them.
Or speak in English.
Yeah.
Where you from? Okay. Thank you, Magali.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure. I had such a great time. And, you know, if you ever are thinking about making Aliyah or have any questions, you know, where to find me, more than happy to answer all your questions.
Thank you. Yeah, so again, you can find Magali and Kevin at Hummus and Tech on Instagram, Spotify, iTunes also?
iTunes and Apple Podcasts, 100%.
Awesome. So check them out and give them a follow, give them a subscribe. See you next time.